You're listening to Comic Reflections, episode 208. I'm your host, Nicholas Prom.
And I'm Spencer Valadez.
Comic Reflections is brought to you by The Outhousers. You can find our show and many cool articles about nerd culture and other things at theouthousers.com. And if you enjoy our show, please subscribe to us on either iTunes or Stitcher.
Yep.
So today, Spencer and I are going to continue our talk about Supervillain Team-Up Volume 1, Essential Supervillain Team-Up Volume 1. And the first issue we're going to talk about today is Giant Size Supervillain Team-Up number 2, which is from June of 1975. And the story is called To Bestride the World, written by Roy Thomas, penciled by Mike Sekowsky, and inked by Sam Granger. Now, okay, Roy Thomas, Rascally Roy. The best, actually, I think he's probably my favorite comics writer ever.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I really just love his stuff. Anything, I mean, he wrote all the Conan, and he did great runs on Avengers, and lots of good stuff, including this. And then, of course, at DC, he did All-Star Squadron, he did Arak, Son of Thunder. He's terrific. And he's probably the greatest living comics historian out there. Okay, he's still the editor of Alter Ego, which is an essential periodical if you're serious about comics history. Anybody who listens to this show really ought to read that magazine, which comes out 8 or 10 times a year. And so.
Okay. Is that something you can pick up at your local comic shop?
If you are a box holder at a comic shop, they can get it for you. And yeah, they should carry it anyway. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's from Tomorrow's Publications, and I recommend really all of their periodicals. I mean, I get like 4 magazines they publish. I get Alter Ego, which is Golden and Silver Age focused. Back Issue, which is really about the 70s and the 80s in comics, obviously.
Right.
Just like
just as a broad 70s and 80s.
You're right. There's a lot of things in there. The Jack Kirby Collector, and Comic Book Creator, which is kind of like the has connectivity with another series book title they used to publish called Comic Book Artist.
Right.
Which was a great book series. So I get all those, and they're wonderful. They're completely indispensable. They are the fuel for this show.
Huh?
So, but anyway, let's talk about this book. One thing I want to talk about: Mike Sekowsky penciling this. Sam Granger, I'm less familiar with. I remember him doing some things at Charlton. Like I think he did the Sentinels at Charlton.
Okay.
Which were a backup, and I think Peter Cannon Thunderbolt. And they were like a beatnik trio that became superheroes, and they were kind of stupid.
Right.
But I remember him doing art on that, and it was okay. But Mike Sekowsky, I'm like, first of all, I don't think of him as working at Marvel at all. He's like, he did all the Silver Age Justice League.
Okay.
Okay. He did the mod kind of reinterpretation of Wonder Woman in the early 70s, which is actually, I think, his greatest work as an artist. It's beautifully drawn. And, he's a DC guy. I really tend to think of that. Oh, he did also at Dell. He did Dell or Gold Key. He did The Man from U.N.C.L.E. comics. That's pretty fun. But yeah, but also looking at this, whatever Sam Granger did, it kind of blurred the Sekowskyism. So it's an odd artistic team that I don't feel is real strong.
Oh.
I think it's just a random freelance assignment for them both.
Okay.
That they just kind of snapped up, needing some extra work. And I think the story is good, but it suffers a bit because of the art. Like it's not a team that clearly gels or works super well. But anyway.
I'll have to show you what you mean. You'll have to show me what you mean. Because
okay.
I enjoyed it.
No, and it's a good read, but I just, I don't know. I thought it was strange.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So, part 1 of Bestride the World is called The Slaying of a Titan.
Right.
And so we start off with this crew of this massive oil tanker.
Yeah.
That's going through the ocean, and these guys are talking about about the tanker and how big it is, kind of giving us an idea of it was a nice way for the writers to tell us about this ship without, just here's a ship.
Right,
big,
and it's important to. This is an important establishing scene because something dramatic happens with this centering around the ship. So, so some sailors, an old sailor and a young sailor, kind of talking about it and blah blah blah.
And the Submariner shows up.
Yay!
It is awesome, like throne boat thing. It's like I don't know if it's powered or if it just looks like there's like dolphins pulling it or sharks pulling it along. But I think it's like all machine.
No.
Yeah.
That's one of the things you lose in these. I don't want to get in the habit of complaining about the black and white volumes, and I really haven't complained about black and color.
I don't think we've even talked about that.
No, really. But some things like that become ambiguous.
Right.
So I don't know if those are ornamental robot dolphins or they're dolphins or sharks or whatever that are pushing some other thing.
Right. If you could probably color them in if you really wanted to.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty bad. So.
It's the whole staying in the lines thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Submariner shows up and he has this giant conch shell thing.
Yeah.
And he's like shouting into it, alerting the sailors that, hey, if you don't, turn this thing around and like stop doing what you're doing, it's going to be destroyed, and that you're just going to have to deal with that.
Well, and that doesn't seem very cool. I can't.
No. And so like the sailors are like, yeah, you come and get it, and so they start firing on him, and of course that just kind of pisses him off more than anything, and he tears the ship apart.
Namor does.
He like punches through the hole, and he actually gives them. He gives the.
He punches through the hull.
Well, he gives the sailors like 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
To abandon ship, and then he's going to destroy it.
Why is he mad? Why does he want to destroy it?
Because it's an oil tanker. It's empty at this point.
Okay, because like.
Right, it's totally empty, but he doesn't want it coming through his kingdom.
Right.
Because if it starts to leak at some point, or if it crashes, it's going to ruin his kingdom.
Right.
Of course. And so, him knowing that it was empty, he comes in and he just lays it to waste. He sinks it, it blows up, but all the sailors are fine.
Yay!
He kind of turns around, he's like, alright, now you know better, and heads back to Atlantis. But it's kind of a bummer return for him.
Yeah.
Because his entire kingdom, all the people, or all the Atlanteans...
Yeah.
They're
in like suspended animation.
Yeah, they're in this stasis kind of thing.
And I don't remember why that is. It's if you were reading Namor at the time, it makes sense. Yeah. The Submariner, but
the Submariner numbers 67 and 68.
Yeah. And only up through I think like there's one essential volume of the Submariner. Mm-hmm. And it covers his issues in, like, I think it's Tales to Astonish, and then, like, some issues of Submariner.
Oh, okay.
Once he got his own book. Really wish they'd done multiple volumes, because what I've read of that series, which is just some scattershot issues, is very cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a character throughout. I mean, he's been a villain and a hero for a long time.
Well, since, like, I think 38 or 9, he's a really old character.
Yeah.
And then 1938 or 9, something around there, and which means he's been around almost as long as Superman.
Yeah.
Okay. He's been around longer than Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just put that in your pipe and smoke it. That's just no perspective.
Right.
But I mean, even when the Silver Age revival, once Marvel reestablished superheroes in the Silver Age in 1961, it was not long at all before they brought Namor back.
Right.
I mean, Namor came back before Captain America. As a villain for the Fantastic Four.
Right.
And those stories are great. So, anyway.
So he kind of gives this monologue about kind of filling us in.
He's monologuing.
Yeah, I mean, there's no one around except for these people in stasis.
Right.
He's absolutely monologuing for our sake.
Of course.
Um,
Or
he
maybe
does-
because he loves the sound of his own voice.
That's true. That's probably very accurate. There is something I wanted to ask. So he mentions Dr. Henry Croft.
Yeah.
Can you give a little brief description of him?
You're asking me to remember about... he's a scientist. That's all I remember about him.
Okay.
The only things I know about Croft are... I briefly wikied him like 2 weeks ago when I read this.
Uh-huh.
And, I read the story.
Right.
So the important details are in this.
Yeah.
Like the all you really need to know.
Right.
He obviously has some relationship with Namor.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's good.
You could have looked it up too.
I could have, but I wanted to get it from you.
I thought we talked about this. You can't
did.
always count on me to be the fount of knowledge. Because like today, I worked all day. I'm tired. Yeah, I know. You're off for the summer, teacher man.
Yeah.
No, I am envious. That's nice.
And so while he's monologuing, he's suddenly interrupted by a massive explosion within the force field.
Yeah.
By the that they've set up for Atlantis. He takes off, and there's just a ton of like ships that kind of look like planes, but are definitely like they're underwater.
Yeah.
And they're just attacking Atlantis. And so he just goes nuts. And there's a ton of just like masked bad guys in like diver equipment.
Okay.
And so while he's fighting them, you think, oh, these are just guys that are firing on him and things.
Yeah.
But it turns out it's not.
No?
They're Doom bots.
Oh, yeah.
They might be like a form of Doom bot.
They're robots of Dr. Doom's.
Right, yeah.
They're not Doombots in they're his doubles that he sends out for minor missions.
Right, yeah.
Because a lot of those times you'll see, because Dr. Doom's an extremely popular character.
Mm-hmm.
And so editorially, a lot of people at various titles in Marvel want to make use of him.
Okay.
So the great thing about Dr. Doom is to get out around continuity problems. Are like, wait, if he was doing this at this time, how could he be over here? You can just say, oh, that one of those was a Doom bot.
Okay.
That Doom just gave autonomy to go do things. It's just like Superman had all those Superman robots.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so...
Okay. I mean, that explains why Superman needed robots. But he's Superman.
No, that's... Even the whole thing about Superman having the robots, it's not for a continuity issue, because DC was very light continuity-wise.
Right.
They were more about creating the mythology.
Okay.
But Superman having the robots was, even Superman can't be everywhere, even though he can travel very quickly and stuff.
So he's not very super.
No, listen. He can't be everywhere.
That's true.
And so the robots can fill in. Also, when he's traveling time or off-world planet, the Superman robots can be taking care of stuff.
Right.
So that's another reason they exist. Anyway, back to this story.
Yeah. So Namor pulls the mask off of one of these guys, and behind it, he sees the face of Dr. Doom.
Right, but it's just a screen projecting on the robot, and Doom's communicating with Namor.
Yeah, and he says, hey, I can continue this assault. You don't want that. I don't want that. Meet me on the surface. So Namor swims up, and there's this weird, hovering thing. I don't even know what even to call it. It's not a helicopter or a plane.
It's a science fiction... It's a comic book vehicle that flies.
Yeah.
What?
And Namor hops aboard, and if you remember in the previous issues, they had talked about teaming up. And at one point Namor, at one point Doom offered to be allies. And then Namor was like, no, screw you. And then Namor came and said, no, let's be allies.
They're always,
like, no,
they're just doing this dance all the time.
But this time, Doom is more convincing with Namor. brings him back to Latveria, and
What did you say?
Latveria.
Yeah.
I just said it fast.
The way you said it sounded like love area. I'm like,
no.
what?
Sorry.
Okay, no, it's...
And he and Doom starts kind of showing off.
Of course.
Like, he's flying over London and Paris and the Alps, and says, "Look at all this land. This could all be ours."
Moo-hoo-ha.
Yeah. If we would just team up,
Yeah.
every knee would bow to us.
Man.
Yeah. And then, to kind of like top it off, he takes him back to the castle.
Yeah.
And shows him all the awesome stuff that he has.
Yeah.
Hey, look at all these androids I've created.
Oh, yes.
They're autonomous. They can do their own thing. They have kind of their own willpower, but not too much.
Right. And it's weird. They even kind of have their own religion.
Yeah.
Which is creepy.
Right. And so Namor kind of mentioned, he's like, "Hey, is that okay? Like, should androids be creating their own religion?" He's like, "It's just a trifle. There's no reason to be afraid of it. All living things, or all things, need a little freedom. It's fine."
Yeah.
But it's not fine.
No, it's not.
And
this issue resolves a dangling plot line from the beginning of this book that we've been looking at. So
they move along past the androids.
Yeah.
The androids are doing their work and doing their weird, like, worship thing at this weird, like, altar.
Yeah.
And after Namor and Doom leave, this other figure shows up.
Yeah.
A figure we don't know. He's new. Ish, yeah. And he gets all this, like, gear from the androids that they put together for him while Doom wasn't looking. While this is happening, Doom and Namor are kind of touring the castle still.
Yeah.
And Doom shows Namor his solar power station, basically. Okay. And that solar power is still decades away from normal people.
Right.
But today, Doom has it and is able to wield it.
And it's so interesting. It's like Roy Thomas must have been reading like Omni magazine or something, or Popular Mechanics.
Yeah.
Because I think they were really. This is 1975, and I think they were really predicting that solar power was going to be a force to be reckoned with, or it would take over.
Right.
Like, I remember in school, like, oh yeah, some people have solar, but really not many.
Right.
And still, like, I think the vast majority of people don't have it. But it's kind of too bad.
Yeah.
But I remember how they tried to build it up, especially going to school in the 90s. Oh, man. Like, solar's going to be a thing, and it just hasn't happened. But it's interesting that this is a predictor of that.
Yeah.
The coming of that. So.
And I think it's two-sided. I think they also kind of, like, down-talk fossil fuels.
Sure.
At the beginning of this issue.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, solar power is great.
Sure.
And I totally dig that because solar power is great. Fossil fuels suck.
Yeah. And look, renewable energy, clean renewable energy.
Yeah.
Go for it, baby.
Yeah.
And I think Roy Thomas is able to convey that without being preachy. Yeah. There's a subtlety to it. And subtlety in a comic book, hey, where we have two heads of state that are supervillains,
being pioneers
in collusion.
Yeah.
So it's very clever.
Yeah.
So.
Unfortunately, while Doom is kind of showing off, the androids show up with their now leader, Andro,
who reveals himself to be the Doomsman, who we encountered in Astonishing Tales, like early on in that arc, those Wally Wood drawn stories.
Right. There's a kind of a note here that says no relation to Doomsman 2 in the latest issue of Fantastic Four. Andro's referring to the now classic Astonishing Tales numbers 1 through 3.
Yeah.
Awesome full-page splash here.
Yeah.
With Andro kind of standing over Doom and Namor as they fight off the androids. And they're all numbered on their foreheads, the androids.
Right.
It's funny. And so we get this long kind of, again, monologue by Andro.
Yeah.
Which, I'm going to be honest, I don't think Namor or Doom would suffer a person monologuing at them. If anyone's going to monologue, it's going to be one of them.
Right. Yeah.
So we kind of get the backstory of the Doomsman from those issues.
Yeah.
But then we have this awesome kind of long fight between the androids, Doom, and Namor.
Yeah, and it's great.
Yeah.
Fighting back to back.
Right.
You know.
Namor's starting to get weakened because he hasn't been in water in a while, and Doom's like, "Hey, come through the secret passage." Namor fights him off, hops down the secret passage, and Doom hits the wall, and water starts to pour in because they're kind of at sea level.
Right.
And Namor's replenished, and he can continue fighting the androids.
Yeah. And if they're really using teamwork.
Yeah.
Doom really does Namor a solid.
Yeah.
And I like it.
Yeah.
It's cool. When they're gelling. Man, they're awesome.
Yeah.
So.
One thing that happens though is that Namor sees these kind of mindless androids and realizes, hey, they kind of have a life. They're not just robots.
Right. They're kind of people.
Yeah.
But they're destroying them, right?
Yeah. And so he stops fighting them.
It's not like Namor's never killed anybody.
Right. But because of his kingdom, the people kind of locked in stasis, he has this kind of soft spot for halfway human things.
Sure.
I guess not human, but halfway living things. And how would he feel if someone came in and just started killing the Atlanteans because they were in this stasis? And so he gets really pissed and confronts Andro, or the Doomsman. Yeah. And is about to fight him, and Doom is like, excuse me, my problem, I will deal with it. And they start to grapple, and they are completely equally matched. Doom can't take the advantage. They are completely equal because
he and the Doomsman.
The Doomsman.
He basically gave him all of his
right
power and intellect or whatever.
Yeah.
What a dumb move, Doom.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he's an android. He couldn't employ sorcery like Doom could. Except you don't see Doom really doing that yet.
Yeah. So one thing we did learn that we kind of skipped over a little.
Oh, sorry.
I can't find it now though. We found out how the Doomsman got away with it.
Oh.
And it was when Namor sent the Doomsman to the end of time, or to a parallel universe at the end of those issues. Later on, the Thing,
Ben Grimm,
and Lockjaw, show up. They've figured out a way to jump through parallel universes, and while they were there, they taught the Doomsman how to do it. And so, while the Doomsman and Doom are grappling and fighting, the Doomsman just pops out. He just leaves.
Yeah. So he just bails.
Yeah. And it's not because he was a coward. Even Doom says it's not because he's a coward. It was to send a message that at any time, at any place, I could show up.
Yeah.
And it would be, I can stop you. We are equally matched here. So that's just something for Doom to think about and stew on. And so all the androids end up getting shut down.
Yeah.
And Doom goes back to the regular robots because they can't think. They just do.
So it remains to be seen whether Andro will return. And I really don't know the answer. This could be his final appearance. He could show up. I don't know. I have not read this series before, and I certainly haven't read every story that ever had Doctor Doom. So I mean, but yeah, pretty cool. I think we get a big improvement in art when we move to the next issue.
Yeah, I noticed that. I did notice that.
Yeah, I mean it's Sikowski's a classic, if not he's more of like, he's not one of like the all-time greats, but he's kind of like you remember him from many classic things, like Don Heck.
Right.
Okay, but I don't know anybody who's just like crazy about Don Heck. Although I do like Don Heck's Avengers. Okay. I think that's probably my favorite stuff of his. But anyway, let's talk about Supervillain Team Up #1. Now that we've done 2 giant-size issues, and now the regular ongoing begins. And the story in this issue is kind of split into 2 parts. Supervillain Team Up #1 is from August of 1975. So 60 days after that first one. And it will be on a 60-day schedule, I think, throughout the series.
Okay.
And that's typical of the time. Slayers from the Sea, Chapter 1, An Alliance Asunder, ? And this first part, okay, written by Tony Isabella. And then the pencils for the first 3 pages are by George Tuska. And then the 3 pages following by Bill Everett. And then all of those pages are inked by Fred Kita. Okay, when we get to the second part, I need to give credits again because it changes up. Now, interesting though, Tony Isabella was coming up in comics at the time. I think he created Ghost Rider, if I remember correctly. And if I remember correctly, I think he also created Black Lightning over at DC.
Wow.
I could be wrong. This is offhand. I'm trying my memory. Okay. The artists, the pencilers on this, I couldn't be happier because we're talking 2 Golden Age comics legends.
Okay.
George Tuska, he worked steadily. He's very visible in the Bronze Age at Marvel, doing a lot of different books. He worked on Iron Man. He worked on Luke Cage. And so yeah, very visible. But Bill Everett, of course, he is the Golden Age creator of the Submariner. So exciting to see him back on this character, even for a few pages.
Yeah.
He may return in this series. I know he... but 1975, this is, I think, near the end of his life.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He had a long period of, like, being unreliable and being an alcoholic, and then he really cleaned up, went to AA, and, like, came back and did some of the finest work of his career, really, in the last couple of years of his life and career.
Okay.
Bill Everett, fascinating character. You really go check out his story of his life. It's interesting. So, yeah. But anyway, let's talk about this.
Yeah. So, this issue takes place minutes after the...
And Fred Kita inking, he'd been working since the Golden Age, too.
Okay.
And Tuska, like, I always say, like, oh, man, if you ever get a chance, take a look at his, like, work on, like, I think Crime Does Not Pay or Justice Traps the Guilty, like, it's Golden Age crime stuff. It's awesome. So, anyway, go.
Right. So, this takes place right after the fight with Andrew.
Yeah.
And Namor, he's like, no, screw it. I can't fight. I can't align myself with you. And he gives these, like, all
they're
these
so
reasons.
back and forth all the time.
And he just takes off. He's
but
like,
that's Namor, because, I mean, eventually nobody can trust the guy, because he goes back and forth between being a hero and being a villain.
Yeah.
So much. It's like Oregon weather. You don't like it? Wait 5 minutes. So.
Yeah. And so then, so Namor takes off, and Doom kind of broods. He talks about his pride and how it kind of gotten in the way many times in this kind of like wanting to be an alliance, but he's like, that is petty.
And Doom is saying this?
Yeah.
This is incredibly humble of Dr. Doom. Yeah. And to get even a shred of that, of humility from Victor Von Doom, is incredible. And I don't think this is necessarily out of character, but I don't think you'll see this side of him with anybody other than somebody he's, then maybe Namor.
Right.
I mean, I can't think of really any alliances with Doom that,
right.
That they're like, I mean, as far as characters that he's he could even come close to calling a friend, Namor is it. I mean, top of my head.
Yeah.
So, their relationship, especially over time, is very interesting.
Yeah.
So
he's talking about, the brilliant mind of Doctor Doom, which should be above mere human motion, and yet plagued by the most distinctive demon of all, pride.
Yes.
I once told Susan Richards that many demons rule Victor Von Doom, but not those of pettiness or fear.
And that, do you remember? We read that story. That was during the Overmind saga.
Yeah.
Dr. Doom, Susan Richards went to Dr. Doom to help them defeat the Overmind because they couldn't do it alone.
Yeah.
And awesome.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite lines of Dr. Doom ever. That scene with Susan where she calls him out.
Right.
Was so awesome, and he's like, "Oh, I'll help you now."
Yeah.
No one's gonna call Dr. Doom petty or afraid.
Yeah.
So.
So he says that, but then he starts questioning himself. He's like, "But wait, can pride be so far removed from pettiness? The Submariner's arrogance grates at my sensibilities. Yet perhaps my own demeanor affects him in similar fashion. I must dwell upon these thoughts further."
They're such great frenemies.
Yeah.
Because, look, I think deep down they know. I think why they grate on each other is because really they are very similar men. And
extreme arrogance on both sides.
Yes, and supreme arrogance.
Yeah.
And I think neither of them is willing. I think both of them would be reluctant to admit weakness or inferiority to any other man.
Right.
And of course they're going to butt heads on that. But in a way, if they can be aware of that, and if thyself, I think if they're able to just accept that, on those moments where oh yeah, we are so alike, they have such an amazing dynamic together, butting heads, but really they're the perfect allies.
Yeah.
So
no, and Doom was right. Flying over London, Paris, and the Alps and stuff, every knee would bow. There's nothing anyone could do about it if those two teamed up. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I mean, the only greater supervillain duo that I could think of, that I just love would be Luthor and Brainiac.
Yeah.
And those team ups from the Silver Age, awesome.
Yeah. I think maybe I'm reading the Magneto series right now.
With the current comics.
Yeah, the current comics.
Cullen Bunn's writing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Magneto at his peak, at his most powerful, could probably contend with these guys. If not, just kind of
power level wise. I mean, it would take, the craftiness and intellect of Dr. Doom to defeat him.
Right.
All of Doom's science and sorcery, because Magneto's power level is tremendous.
Yeah.
But I think Magneto is another character. He shares some similarities with Namor in that he's gone back and forth being anti-hero and villain.
I think those extremes seem... Personally, I think those extremes with Magneto are way more they're very... they're extreme. So he's either very good or he's very bad.
Yeah.
And Namor,
Silver and most of the Bronze Age, really, Magneto was just evil.
Yeah.
But in the 80s, there's a real shift with him. He even went on trial. A repentant Magneto went on trial for his crimes. He had reformed and was part of the X-Men, actually.
Right, yeah.
He, was leading the New Mutants for a time. He was their headmaster at the Xavier School.
Yeah.
But, then there was a falling out, and he went back to being the Magneto of old.
Right.
With more nuance. But then he's come back to the side of good again.
Yeah.
So
even in the series I'm reading now, he is good, but he might be on the side he's on the side of the Angels, but he's not one of them.
Sure.
He's fighting a good fight, but...
Yeah. Well, isn't he part of Cyclops' X-Men team, which is basically basically like the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Like, they're doing good, but just for mutant kind.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, Cyclops killed Professor X.
Hmm.
You know, so, yeah. Anyway.
And so...
Spoilers.
Yeah. Doom kind of goes down to the lowest part of his castle. No one knows about it. And it's his kind of, like, brooding chair where he
has that
video
circular chamber with all the monitors and all the switches. I love those.
He sits there and he's like, man, like watches all the videos of all the times he's lost, or all the times it's been a stalemate, and how those hurt the most. And and he decides, you know what? If he kind of gets angry and like destroys the machine and stuff.
Sure.
He says, you know what? If Namor's not gonna help me out here, I'm gonna find a way to help him out, and he's gonna own me. Is my thought. It's like, so that's kind
interesting.
of
that's how you're reading into it.
That's how I'm reading into it.
Okay,
so
I don't think you're wrong.
Namor swims off like he's gone, but Doom sends this like mechanical fish after him.
Yeah. And
it like follows him.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the end of part 1 here.
Right. So let me give credits as we go into part 2.
Yeah.
Part 2 is called Frenzy on a Floating Fortress. Written again by Tony Isabella. Penciled by George Evans, who was another alumnus of EC Comics. Great artist. And he did a lot of work, not just for EC, but he was one of the great deal of work for them. His most famous work, doing a lot of crime and horror stuff. But he did romance comics, he did westerns, he did it all. And Frank Springer on inks, and I'm blanking on Frank Springer. He's a familiar name, and I can't recall his career. But I digress.
Oh, so right. Okay, so I don't remember why he ended up here, but Namor finds him. We find Namor on Hydro base.
Right.
The island. It's an island that kind of it has no permanent spot.
Right.
It moves around. It's not like the Lost.
Now,
Island.
Hydro base is whose base is it?
The island was the domain of Dr. Hydro. He was in Submariner number 61 through 63. He might have been just a
villain.
A villain.
Okay. Like I don't know.
Right. But I think it was. I think Dr. Hydro. I think it was him who, while he was in control of the space, had a bunch of humans who he turned into.
Oh, that's right. That's this story. Okay.
Yeah.
And so including someone from Namor's past.
Right.
From his Golden Age adventures, which, awesome. Yeah. And Roy Thomas loves to take it back to the Golden Age. He loves bringing Golden Age characters around.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So,
oh,
Namor...
wait, Roy Thomas didn't write this. Sorry.
No, he didn't.
He's probably editor on the book, though.
Len Wein.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, then I'm just...
Len Wein did the last one as well.
Okay. Man, I'm
yeah,
off
so
a little bit.
as Namor comes to the island, he's hit with this like electric beam, and he's like, and he says, he mentions previously, had he been in his like weakened state like he was a few years ago,
yeah,
this would have definitely killed him. But now he's fine. He just left the water, you know.
So that surgically closed gill thing is over.
I think that whole arc is done.
Yeah, that must have resolved itself in Namor's regular book.
Right.
Which I think ran like 75 issues.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, but then he just beats the crap out of the machine. And continues on, he's definitely kind of hurt. Not hurt, I don't know if hurt's the right word. He's...
Insert an adjective and move on.
Right, yeah, he's down for a second, and a hand reaches out to grab him, and who's attacking the Avenging Sun?
Yeah.
And it turns out it's Dr. Jennings, one of the humans that was
Turned into kind of an amphibian.
right. Yeah. And they start talking, and Namor remembers him, and you know, I think Namor's as friendly as Namor gets.
Yeah.
To this guy, you know. And Dr. Jennings is about to explain what was going on, and there's an explosion.
Right.
And they run towards it, and out of nowhere, these 5 villains show up. I can't remember their names, though.
Well, it's Atuma, Tiger Shark, Dr. Dorcas, and
I think 2 henchmen.
And just 2 henchmen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's like 3 of like Namor's like 5 major villains.
Right, yeah.
So it's a big deal. There's a lot of supervillains in this book.
Yeah,
think about it.
So this is Korkon, the Barbarian, and this Jester guy. I can't remember his name.
What? Show me.
Here.
Oh, I can't remember who that is. Yeah, he's like just a hench person.
Oh, Saru-san. I think that's his name. Saru-san.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And they fight. Namor takes him out fairly easily.
It is Tiger Shark and Atuma, and right?
Not yet.
Not yet.
They come later,
Okay.
No.
Sorry. I'm kind of like reading like sort of over your shoulder and upside down.
Right.
So.
No, you're right though. They do show up later.
Okay.
And so while these guys are down, the henchmen are too. Dr. Jennings kind of gives the whole thing. The people who were left on the island were doing some experiments because they're scientists, and although he isn't, he puts on a radiation suit and does some physical
sciencey stuff.
And as he's doing it, while he's in this special suit, a blast of ionic energy.
There you go.
Hits everyone, and they all kind of they're injured and they go down.
Yeah.
And so Dr. Jennings runs away.
Okay.
He sees these big ships with tentacles.
Now, did Namor's old gal pal show up? Has she shown back up yet?
There's been a picture of her.
And I'm just blanking on her name. I'm really off today.
Betty. Can't remember her last name.
Damn it.
But it is Betty. She will come up, and we will see her name.
Okay. But anyway, she was the love interest for Namor in his Golden Age adventures.
Right. So Dr. Jennings runs away from these tentacle things. He gets away. But while Jennings is telling Namor the story, he drops the names of...
Betty Dean.
Betty Dean, that's it. He says, "Hey, do you think you can get the Avengers to come help? There's going to be a big fight for you." And he's like, "Avengers? No way!" How dare you? Namor needs no assistance to deal with the likes
here we go.
of Atuma. And
clearly you do.
Immediately, he's punched in the back of the head.
Right.
Right.
That arrogance typically his undoing.
Right. So we have Tiger Shark, we have Atuma, and we have...
Dr. Dorcas.
Dr. Dorcas. That's right. And they start just talking.
Monologuing.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Dorcas is more like an evil super scientist.
Gotcha.
Of Atlantean heritage, I think.
Okay.
I'm blanking a little bit on him. But Atuma and Tiger Shark, just super villains.
Yeah.
Okay. Atuma, an Atlantean warlord, or barbarian actually, who wanted to and did briefly usurp Namor's throne. He had a couple of usurpers in his time.
Okay.
It was also Warlord Krang who did the same number on him, but Namor beat him up.
Right.
I was actually kind of like, oh, they got these guys. I was kind of hoping Krang would be there too.
Right.
But maybe it's just too much.
Yeah.
Who knows? He may have killed Warlord Krang by now. I don't know.
They mention him. Oh, no.
No?
No. He says, "I'm the master warlord, Namor. Dorcas and Tiger Shark add to my skill the knowledge and sheer power a conqueror must have."
Yeah. I do enjoy Tiger Shark and Atuma. I think they're they're good villains.
Right.
You know.
There is a...
And I think they are the Black Manta and Ocean Master of
Gotcha.
Submariner.
Okay.
I really feel that.
There
And
is
he
a
does have
panel
a
later on.
slightly better Rogues Geller than Aquaman.
Well,
Aquaman does have some villains, like the two that I mentioned,
right.
and then like the Fisherman, and I can't. There's a couple others. Yeah, he kind of has a lousy Rogues
Right.
Geller, but anyway.
There's a panel later on of Tiger Shark, and it just looks ridiculous. The fin on his back head is so huge.
It is very big.
That-
It's like the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy with the fin. Yondu.
Yeah, Yondu.
Yeah. It's big and crazy like that.
Okay.
But yeah.
So Namor immediately jumps in and starts fighting these three guys, and deals with them almost quickly, and then throws them into the water.
Yeah.
And then they get they're like, well, this is our domain too.
Duh.
And so they start fighting underwater, which is fun.
Yeah. I mean, Atuma and Tiger Shark are formidable adversaries for Namor, but neither one of them are at his power level.
Right.
But the fact that all three of these guys are teamed up,
Yeah.
this is a serious threat to Namor. I like this is good.
Right. And so Namor is defeated. They kind of beat him up enough, and then they Dr. Dorcas fires a weapon at him.
Yeah.
That was made underwater. And so
Okay.
it was like an electric gun that shoots forward, but it doesn't cause any electrical effect to the fire, the person who fires it.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so he's totally captured. Namor is, but Dr. Jennings gets away.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And that leads us into the next issue.
Yeah. So supervillain team up number 2, which is from October of 1975. The story is called "In the Midst of Life," and then ellipses ... Written by Tony Isabella. The penciled layouts by Sal Buscema, and then the pencils and inks by Fred Kita.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now when I say the layouts, I mean Sal basically storyboarded it. Did rough kind of here, all the stuff, and then Fred Kita just went in and use that as a guideline to draw it. Frequently Kirby would do that for people too.
Okay.
So sometimes you'll see layouts by Kirby but pencils by Don Heck or somebody else. That's what happened there.
Gotcha.
So, but anyway, let's get into this.
Yeah. So the first page, 2-page spread. Oh, no, it's not.
No.
2 1-page full spreads. But it's Doctor Doom watching
Everything that's unfolded
everything that's happening
in the previous issue.
Yeah. And Dr. Jennings escapes the hands of the jester guy, Saru-san.
Yeah.
By punching him in the back of the head.
Now, either Tiger Shark or Atuma, I think it's Tiger Shark, finds Doom's robot fish camera that he sent to follow Namor.
And
now,
just crushes it.
Yeah, so Doom knows something is up, and so he's going to go and help Namor out.
Yeah. So he
So
walks
it's kind of
out of the castle.
Yeah, it's kind of okay, as Doom said, we're if I can do something, so he'll owe me.
Right.
Got it.
So that was my reading into it. Doom never really said it, but it's something that I think was heavily implied.
Yeah, but also maybe it's Doom this is his way of trying to build a friendship. Wait, the only way first of all, Doom was I want to have an alliance with Namor.
Right. Yeah.
And he realized the only way he can earn his trust is ironically spying on him, but
right, yeah.
but able to aid him, and they're okay, we are going to be pals after this. So
right.
It's such an interesting bit of character growth for Doom, and I really like it.
Yeah, no, it's great.
So
continue. Doom walks out to the kind of courtyard in his palace and castle, and opens the floor, a rocket comes out.
Of course!
Hops on the rocket, takes off. End of chapter 1. As soon as Doom steps foot on the island, he's immediately hit by one of the kind of the same laser blast as Namor was.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, but you know what? I've prepared for this because of Namor. And he gives a brief description of what when he fought Namor with the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, and that's way back in what
the
Fantastic Four #6.
Yeah,
which is Doom's second story ever, because he debuted in Fantastic Four #5.
Wow. Okay. And so there's a little thing from Len Wein. Alert, Marvelites! We recall that Iron Man's thermocoupler serves a similar purpose. Wonder who holds the patents.
I don't know.
I think Doom is probably a lot like China, where they don't care about patents and just steal stuff.
He's Doom. Does what he wants.
Yeah. Tony Stark probably owns the patents.
But who cares? And even if somebody else invented it, Doom's gonna find a way to improve upon it.
Yeah, totally.
He's Victor Von Doom.
Mm-hmm.
So
it pans back, and we see Doom is confronted by two of the tentacly ships that were there previously.
Yeah. I don't know if you mentioned them before, actually.
Oh, I thought I did.
I don't think you did, but
okay.
Anyway. So anyway, Doom fights them, and then meets Betty Dean.
Yeah. She's kind of spying on him.
Right.
And she's talking to herself, and it turns out Doom was actually right behind her, and what she was watching was a projection of himself.
Right, to draw out who was nearby.
Yeah.
Of course, he's Dr. Doom.
Yeah. And then he's like, "Hey, who are you? Tell me your name. Tell me who you are." And she's like, "I'm not going to tell you anything." And he's like, "Fine, I'll tell you who you are." And he just lays it all out for her, and she's like,
yeah,
okay, fine." And he mentions that he's old friends with Namor.
Mm-hmm. And so is she.
Yeah.
She and Namor go way back. Not as far as Doom, obviously, but...
So she kind of fills Doom in on what's been going on in the island.
So Doom has kind of earned her trust a bit.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
And they decide they're going to try to have to free Namor.
Yeah.
They know what happened to Namor, and they need to free him. And so we turn to Namor and the trio of villains, and they've kept him in the locked, kind of chained up in this room that has a very, very low humidity, and so it's very hot.
Right.
And it's drying him out, and it's keeping him at the point where he's unconscious but alive.
Right.
Yeah.
Do they monologue their whole plan?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
They do.
Okay. Well, I don't know why I asked.
Right, yeah.
For one, I've read it. And second, of course they did.
So Doom and Betty show up at the compound, and they come to a wall, and they're like, well, how are we going to get in there? He's 4 floors below the ground. And he's like, oh, watch this. And he clicks a few things on his wrist, and he starts drilling into the into the ground. And they drill, and he gets to they get to the floor that Namor's at, and they burst through the wall. But immediately, all 3 villains are there: Tiger Shark, Dorcas, and
Atuma.
Yeah. And Dorcas takes no time and just slaps Betty.
Not cool.
And when Namor he realizes, oh my god, it's Betty. And he hits her, and Namor loses it. He goes crazy. He starts pulling on his chains. You'll pay for that, you villain.
Yeah.
And Atuma and Tiger Shark turn, and they go to attack Namor.
Yeah. But
foolish them turn their back on Doom, and he blasts them with his power blast thing. He uses the same beam he was using to drill.
Yeah.
And he says, to adjust my sonic driller to a more satisfying function, and just nails these guys with it. You'll never free yourself in time, and Dorcas turns to fire a weapon at Namor.
Yeah.
And then we see this panel Betty, no, running, and she jumps in front of the blast.
Takes it the blast for Namor.
Yeah. He screams, not again, not again, and the chains break. And
he remembers losing Lady Dorma and his father.
Yep.
And this is just terrible moment for Namor.
Right. He wants to say, I love you. He wants to say all this stuff, but he can't.
Because she's dead.
As soon as she falls, she's dead.
Yeah.
And the whole room is, like, frozen.
Yeah, and it ends on a full-page splash of Namor cradling Betty in his arms.
Yeah. It says, for a very long time, it seems no one dares to move and no one speaks. Then Namor looks up, and he is furious.
Yes.
And I'm so excited to read this next issue.
I know. So that's where we're going to leave off for today.
It is.
In 2 weeks, we'll get the conclusion of that story and move on through this book. Next week, Spencer and I will be looking at more Silver Age Green Lantern. I think it'll be issues 48, 49, and 50.
I think that's correct.
Yeah, and that's going to be in Showcase Presents Green Lantern Volume 3. If you want to read along, that'd be awesome sauce. Yes.
Yeah, so remember to rate and review us on iTunes, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. Join us. Oh, yeah, we already did the join us part.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So, yeah, thanks for listening. I'm not going to do the sign off that Jeff does, the see you in the funny pages thing. That's just his thing.
Yeah.
So we'll just go. We'll just end abruptly because it's fun.